Hello and welcome to this live stream where we will try to cover the new capabilities in Crystallize related to archiving and time machining, as we call it. Together with me, I've got Vasil, which is lead frontend here at Crystallize. And we will try to go through the different capabilities and also the reasoning why we added the archiving capabilities in the service. And we'll do some investigation, and because this is the most fun part maybe of an archiving or version history, is the audit trail, or the, as we know it from GitHub and other sources, the blame capabilities, right? Who did what, when, and for how long was it available, that kind of thing. So I guess that's a brief introduction to what we will cover today. What you see on the screen now is, of course, a front end of a, I think this is the remix boilerplate in Crystallize, where we have a simple product with a couple of illustrated posters. And there has been some changes done to this. So let's dive into what's new and also how we can use the tool to investigate and do that good old blame or throwing under the bus, as we call it. So maybe Vasil, do you want to give a little bit of introduction to some of the new concepts that we have introduced?
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, let's take a look here. What we have like this really beautiful e-commerce with different illustrations, as Bor said. And then just kind of clicking through them, you see that pretty much they're all very beautiful, of course, but something really kind of grabs your attention here. That's this one thing, that is the price, right? A very important bit. So you see that notice that most of them are 16 euro, but then all of a sudden you have like this two is like on a very low price without even explaining why. It looks a bit strange, right? Because kind of everything else it's pretty much the same. So what we'll try to do here today, we'll try to look at when this price was changed and by whom, and maybe try to figure out how that happened, right? Cool. So from here, I will navigate to the Crystallize backend, or this is kind of our platform where we're holding this product. And this is the product with all the illustrations that you saw earlier here on my screen, with all the variants. And then kind of to start with looking at this, probably we need to kind of look at more details about the item, right? Like why this price was changed and how. And the first thing here to notice is that in Crystallize, we are adding a new concept or a new sidebar. And you may notice that here now at the top we have three icons. So kind of the middle one is the catalog, or all the items that you have in your catalog. The right one is a new feature that we added recently. This is the asset organizer that you get in kind of in the context of the catalog. And then we have this new item, a new icon over here, which is the edit icon. The same one you see if you hover one of the items you have or a product, right? So if I click on it, what you actually get to see here is the new sidebar that we're introducing together with archiving. So what is special about the new sidebar is that it's kind of in the context of the item. That means the new sidebar shows the things that are specific for this item for the specific language that we are choosing. And this is very easy to see, for example, that over here at the top, we're having archives for English, for example, right? And then if I switch to Norwegian, you see that here we're getting archives for Norwegian. And this is really a difference between the old sidebars, kind of the catalog sidebar, the assets sidebar, and this item sidebar, because the item sidebar now is kind of very tight and specific to the item that you're viewing currently. Cool. So this is kind of the first a new thing that we're introducing together with the archiving feature.
But and this is also to for us. This is the first contextual sidebar that we have, and there will be more. So this concept will be extended for other parts of the service while editing, so that you can manipulate stuff. But that's for the future, right? Now let's look at what we have now.
Cool. So let's kind of continue and try to deep dive a bit more in what we are actually getting here on the site, and then we'll try to solve our case, right? Like how the price changed. So if you see here on the site, we are currently displaying just the archives for this item. And here at the top, we're having like the current draft version. And for example, you see now, if I go here and add that these are illustrated art posts, you see that the current draft version was changed by me because I added the art, right? And this here reflects my vocal time when the change happened. But let's see what is the next one. So here is the current published version. So let me click on it. What you get to see here is actually a new view that we are adding also together with the archives. And this is the published view, right? So here we are displaying exactly actually what you see in your site, like over here, because this is the published version. And as you can see here, for example, the thing that I added, the art posters, is not here because what I did is just in the draft, right? And this is the published version. So this is what we have in the published version. And actually, you see here that also the published version has the price already that you saw on the website, which is kind of makes sense, of course. Cool. So maybe let's continue a bit down to see what else we are getting. I'll come back this later. This named archives. But let me check, for example, one of the history here, or the actual archives. So I'll click on the archive that Daria did. And then over here, we are also seeing that. So what you are actually seeing here is also kind of a new view that we are just displaying how the item looked like back then. And you see that the price here was 3 and 4 euros already, right? And everything in this view, when the archive view is disabled, or it's kind of in the read mode, because we cannot really change anything on archive. This is something that just happened in the past. If we decide to check the kind of one archive that happened before that, this is the Stoles archive over here on the side. So if I click on it, you see actually that here the price is already at 19 euro. So now we kind of have idea like actually when and how the price was changed. So that's where Daria actually changed the price to 3 and 4 euro over here.
But you can also notice that there are some other changes here. Obviously, the variant pictures have changed also in this, so you can immediately see it.
Yeah, that's easy to spot, definitely. Just by clicking to different archives, yeah, you can see that. But one other thing that you can see here is also when you hover one of the archives, right? You can see when the archive was published and when it went, when actually the archive was created. So when we create the archives, when we publish an item, so when we publish an item, it goes first into current published version, and then it can stay like that for a while until the next publish come. And when the next publish come, then we are archiving the previous one. So what you see here is actually the time when the published version was created, and then the time when it was archived. So we know that this archive was live for 3 hours. I think that's the important part here as well, right? So we know for how long actually this was live.
And especially if you make an error, right? Oh, we changed the price crisis. How long did it actually stay online, right? So that you know the duration and the severity of the error. Yeah.
Impact. Yes. So that's kind of the easy way that we can see easily when things changed just by clicking and looking at different archives. And as you can see here at the bottom, we have archives from different people. So the archives are all grouped by the person who did them. And here displaying the time when they actually occurred. Cool.
Then I've got a question, and maybe a leading one. But let's say if I've got today you usually have quite large screens, and I'm looking for when this change happened. I want to compare, and maybe.
So yeah, that's of course kind of where we also thought about it, right? Because just clicking on archives, you're getting the view of the archive in full view, which is nice. But sometimes you want to actually compare of like what you have actually with what's published out there, right? Or when it was published with an older version. So what we can do in this case. So we are adding here a new option for displaying archives, and that's show like a split view. So now we can, you know, the split view that we introduced recently over here, when you can split the screen in two halves. So what we can do here now, so if we split the screen, we can drag and drop archive version, or if we hover one of the archives, here in the action menu, we can open it in split view as well, right? So I will just get this archive and I'll drop it here. So now we have actually this nice view of what is actually our current version, or we can even check what's the current published version and compare it with any archive that we want. So you see that our current published version has the price of 3 and 4 euro here for the first two variants, and the draft that I'm looking is the same. But what about if I go like one before that? So now it's very obvious, like the price is different. You can see that also the image was changed, right? So the first variant had a different image. So this is actually where you can visually compare what you have currently on your site with any archive that you want.
So, and this is also useful then if you're actually going to change back the prices, as we will do in this case, because it should be 19 euros for these posters.
Yeah, so we can just copy the price from here and put it out here on this side.
Yeah.
And do the same for the other one, which happen to be the same, of course, but...
Yeah. So it's simple thing, but at least it gives you the full history, and you can easily do side-by-side comparison. And now you can publish these changes, of course, and then we're back to a good state. And of course, notice whenever a version is published, you get your current draft and your published version, and then you can also see that the archived version now is the version I published some time ago, actually. And you can also then go in and see how long was my version online again, so that you have the 23 minutes this was live earlier today. One thing that I think is quite interesting in addition to this, because this is it automatically creating an archive with a timestamp, who did what, when, etc. But sometimes you want to experiment. And what we did earlier today, probably around 11:25 today, we were experimenting with some different color combinations, or different thumbnails in this case. And why do you get that? I mean, what's going on here?
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, that I'll cover later the named archives. So what we introduce here with archives as well is a capability to actually name or make your archives kind of a bit more special than the rest of the archives. And this has like a few use cases, like for example, you're changing your prices before Black Friday, for example, where you want to have the value before the price reduction that you want to put on your website, and then after the Black Friday you can go back to the same version, right? So you can name this archive and then remember it, kind of make it more special, because you know that eventually you will go back to that state. So how this can be done? So when we hover again over one of the archives here, you see in the action menu that we have the option to name archive. So this is simple. It works as simple as just naming it. Here will be like a special one. And then when you create it, you see that our special archive here pops at the top. So then this is like a reference to that archive that's easy to go there and always kind of look at it when it's needed, right? And then you can also revert your item to kind of to the state that was for that named archive. Yeah, so those are the kind of naming archives. So they're special ones that are separated from the rest. So I think one important thing here to mention with archives is that currently we allow to have up to 50 archive items per language. That means for English, we can create 50 archives. And then if we switch to Norwegian, then we have like another 50, of course, because they're separate anyhow. And then the named archives are the ones that are kind of kept until to the end. So we'll make sure that we always have them, because they're kind of the special archives that eventually you want to come back to them.
And this is then, so you have 50 archives per language, and we will always keep the named ones. And then the history items are just rolling. So the oldest one will be kicked out. So depending then on how many named archives, if you have 10 named archives, you get 40 unnamed that are rolling, where we kick out the last one. So it gives you plenty of history to keep up with all the changes.
Yeah, and work with. It's true.
Yeah. One thing here, because we did introduce permissions as a much more fine grain than we used to have in Crystallize with the new roles that we released a couple of months back, I'm guessing. How does it affect this feature? Is this do you need some special permissions to access this, or how is it integrated into?
Yeah, so the archives and the catalog are kind of very coupled, right? Because the archives are created from the catalog items. So the way that this works with the permissions is that if you have permissions to read the catalog items, then you can also read the archive items. And because the archives, they are something that cannot be changed, right? So we don't need to worry about update and delete and create. Update and create. The only thing that we can do with archives is like read and delete them. So reading is, as I said, if you have permissions to read the catalog items, then you can also read the archives. And for deleting, if you can delete an item, then you can also delete an archive. Because kind of archives and catalog items, they are very much coupled, right? So that's the way that your open permissions are working with the archives.
Makes a lot of sense. So what's up next for archiving? This was the initial release of the feature.
Yeah, so this is V1, kind of giving the possibilities to look at different archives, kind of in the full view on a split screen, compare them, name archives. I think this cover kind of the basis. But what is next, and what I think would be very nice is like first is adding the new adding a feature where you can visually see and compare what is your current published version and your draft, and what's the difference between the archive and the published version, right? So we're having like split screen where on one side is the published, one side is the archive, and then we highlight actually what's different, right? So then you can easily see, just spot what got different. And then the next thing is that once you are able to kind of see that and then easily identify what changed, then the way to actually copy or get the value that was in the archive and then bring it back to your published version. So this will be either like copying the text and pasting it there, some easy automated way, right? Or if there are like more components or more items that's changed, and kind of get all of them and then bring that archive version back to published.
Yeah, because today is basically do manual cut and paste or copy the image references. It's very simple to do today, but of course, then what you're saying is that, and it's typically a partial restore. Oh, I want to get back this description to the old version, and then you just hit a button to set it. Now you actually have to cut and paste. So that'll be even smoother.
Yeah, that's what is coming next for archives.
Well, that's good. As always, all of this functionality is also available via the APIs. So you can, even with the new custom views capabilities, create your own version view and create your own extensions to how you're actually manipulating this. It's all available as of last week in the what we call it, production version of Crystallize. Check it out. If you have any questions, join the Slack community and ping us there. We're all available there, the whole team, and many others. So I guess that's it. See you in the next one.
Bye.